إن الحمد لله نحمده ونستعينه ونستغفره ونستهديه ونتوب إليه ونعوذ بالله من شرور أنفسنا ومن سيئات أعمالنا من يهده الله فلا مضل له ومن يضلل فلا هادي له وأشهد أن لا إله إلا الله وحده لا شريك له وأشهد أن محمدا عبده ورسوله يا أيها الناس اتقوا ربكم الذي خلقكم من نفس واحدة وخلق منها زوجها وبث منهما رجالا كثيرا ونساء واتقوا الله الذي تساءلون به والأرحام إن الله كان عليكم رقيبا يا أيها الذين آمنوا اتقوا الله حق تقاته ولا تموتن إلا وأنتم مسلمون يا أيها الذين آمنوا اتقوا الله وقولوا قولا سديدا يصلح لكم أعمالكم ويغفر لكم ذنوبكم ومن يطع الله ورسوله فقد فاز فوزا عظيما. Dear respected brothers and sisters and elders, today inshallah ta'ala we'll be speaking briefly because we have about 25 minutes or so about Muslims' participation in the election. This is 2016. We will elect a president. Those who are citizens are eligible and they should register to vote and they should also vote. To whom, that's up to them. Nobody should say that and nobody should intervene in their own personal decision. And I have to say that this is my personal views, which does not reflect the views of ISGD or any other Muslim organization. I will be speaking briefly in the first khutbah about 3 short points about historical background about the Muslim existence in this country, in Europe briefly, starting from Andalusia. Second one, about Muslims' rights and any other citizens in this country, briefly also, and especially in regard to the election. And the third one, inshallah, what Muslim scholars have said about participation in the elections in non-Muslim countries for Muslim communities. أولا يا الأخوة والأخوات، لمحة مختصرة عن تاريخ الإسلام والمسلمين في الغرب وفي أمريكا بالخصوص. كما نعلم فالمسلمون ليسوا غرباء. منذ عام 92 الهجرة 711 ميلادي فتحت الأندلس وبقي المسلمون هناك 805 سنوات هجرية 789 سنة ميلادية، حوالي 8 قرون. انتشر فيها العلم، صارت فيها الحضارة والتقنية في عصر كان يسمى بعصر الظلمات أو عصر الظلام أو العصور الوسطى بالنسبة لأوروبا التي كانت عصر الانحطاط. فالمسلمون لم يكونوا ليسوا غرباء على هذه الأرض. So Muslims in regard to Europe, they came there in the 92nd year of Hijrah, which is 711 AD or CE. They spent 805 years, 5 Hijri years there, 789 Gregorian years there, until the fall of the last emirate of Al-Andalus, which is Grenada, which we're going to speak about, inshallah ta'ala. So during that time, it was a prosperous time, it was safe, it was secure, and also technology at that time, that concept, knowledge, education, other sciences, including math and maritime science. So they were advanced in that time, which at that time was known as the age of darkness. So Muslims should be proud of that time. In 1492, that year coincided with 2 events. The first one, the fall of the last emirate of Andalusia, Grenada, with Al-Nasr, the king of Al-Nasr. And the discovery of this place, the land, United States, which became their own United States of America, the New World. So from the early time, since Christopher Columbus came here in 1492, he sailed with three ships. He was a captain of one of them. The other 2, which are known as Pinta and Anina, 2 ships, the captains of those were the Pinzon brothers. Pinzon brothers are Martin Alonso Pinzon and Vincent Yanes Pinzon, who are descended of a Moroccan Sultanate of Abu Zayyan. They were not Muslim themselves, as many historical accounts state, but they were descendant of Muslim families. After the fall of the last emirate in Andalusia, Muslims and Jews, both of them, were persecuted, were forced to convert to Christianity. They were punished and they were tortured and killed and expelled from their homes. So these 2 men were the 2 captains of the other 2 ships. After that, briefly in 1500s, so there was a famous discoverer of this country known as Estefanico. Estefanico, his name is Mustafa Zamouri. He was a Berber from Morocco who was born as Muslim, but he was sold as a slave to a Portuguese person who converted him to Christianity. Allahu Alam, that's by his will or against his will. But he was among the early discoverers who came, and only 4 people, including him, made it to the shore of Florida, and they moved to what is today the Mexico City. So since early time, Muslims were here, which show us that they were a part of the social fabric. Also in 1790, that's with the founding fathers, the United States got, the first 13 states declared their independence on 4th of July 1776. So 4 years later, the first president, George Washington, when he sent a letter to the rabbi of the first synagogue in the United States in Newport, New Hampshire, 1790, he mentioned the children of Abraham, and he said he will welcome the Muhammadan to Mount Vernon, which is his hometown, if they are good people. So they were there, and also following that 1790, the same year, the South Carolina legislature gave a special status for a Moroccan committee who requested to have a special status because they said they were not African American, they are not Caucasian, they are not Native Americans, they need their own identity, and they were granted that in a following decision signed by President John Adams, which was known as Moore's Sundry Act. If we go to the 19th century, briefly inshallah ta'ala, in 1803, there are famous 2 people I'm going to mention, and they have too much impact on the Muslim society and in the societies they lived in. Bilali Muhammad or Ben Ali Muhammad from Guinea, which is today Guinea-Conakry. There are 3 Guineas in Africa. So he was born there, and he came to an island off the coast of Georgia called Sabilo Island. And he was a leader of 80 slaves there. He was also an imam, 1803. And in the war of 1812, as I'm going to mention shortly, inshallah, he also defended the area from the British. And he was known to be fasting Ramadan, to wear the kuftan, and to pray the 5 times, the 5 daily prayers. In 1807, another man from Senegal, his name is Omar bin Said, he was a scholar who spent 25 years in education. He was brought as a slave to both North and South Carolina. He was born in 1770 in Senegal, and when he came here, he wrote 14 books in Arabic, 14, 1-4, in Islam, in history, including his own personal autobiography in 1831. So in 1829, Bilal Muhammad again wrote that book called Al-Risala, which is still available today and preserved at the library of the University of Georgia. If we move to 19th century, in 1800s, there is a famous person called Haji Ali. Haji Ali, he was a Greek person born in Ottoman Empire at the time. He converted to Islam. He was born as Philippe Tidro in 1828. He went to Hajj, became Haji, and then United States of America decided to have a division for camels for their army, and they need someone to take care of it. They hired some other people, and Haji Ali was put in charge. But his name was changed to H.I. Jolly, J-O-L-L-Y. He was in Quartzsite, Arizona, and he was also an imam. So we see that Muslims were here. If we go to the 20th century, about the first masjid was built in this country, in this area, at least 100 years ago. The first masjid was built by some Albanian communities in 1915, 1915 in Bedford, Maine. They were working in the textile, and they also had a cemetery, but that masjid does not exist anymore. The second one was built in 1929 in North Dakota, in a city called Ross, but the masjid was demolished. The actual masjid, which still exists right now, what is known as the Modern Mosque of America, was built in Cedar Rapids in 1934, which is the longest standing mosque in America. So around 100 years ago. If we move lastly, inshallah, to 21st century, to our time, in 2006, the first Muslim to be elected to be a member of the Congress was Keith Allison, a lawyer from Minnesota, 2006. 2 years later, the only two Muslims are there, Andre Carson from Indiana, in 2008, he was re-elected after the death of his grandmother who was holding that position. So Muslims in this country, their numbers is about from 3.5 million based on some American estimate to 7 or 8 millions based on some Muslim estimation. In the Pew Research of 2007, there are 85% of Muslims who were born outside the United States, and 15 only were second or third generations. 81 of them are U.S. citizens. And if we break it down by their ethnicities, we'll find that based on the Zughbi International Survey in 2004, 30% are South Asians, 25% are African American, 25 are Arabs. And right now, we have more than 2,000 masjid based on the American Mosque Survey written by Dr. Ihsan Bagbi, the Assistant Professor of Islamic Studies at UK Lexington. So the point here, Muslims were part of the social fabric, and they have contributed to the society. Those who are legal and citizens, they enjoy the rights and they have the privilege of voting, which I'm going to mention inshallah ta'ala in the following secondary points. So باختصار شديد أيها الإخوة والأخوات، المسلمون كانوا جزءا من النسيج الاجتماعي، ساهموا فيه بدرجات مختلفة وفي مجالات مختلفة، ولا يزالون يساهمون فيه. ومن كان منهم مواطنا فله الحق في المشاركة السياسية، في الترشح وفي الانتخاب. وإن شاء الله تعالى سأتحدث عن ذلك في النقطة الثانية، وهي الحقوق السياسية للمسلمين في الغرب. عموما كل من هو هنا، من هو مقيم أو زائر، يتمتع بحرية الدين والعقيدة، التعديل أول الدستور، وحرية الكلام والتجمهر، وهذه نعمة من نعم الله لا يتمتع بها كثير من المسلمين الآن في بلدانهم لأسباب عديدة معروفة. وكذلك كل من كان مواطنا بغض النظر عن دينه أو عرقه أو لونه أو جنسه، إذا كان عمره 18 سنة عند تاريخ الانتخابات فإنه يحق له التصويت، والتصويت مجاني. فهناك 4 تعديلات للدستور من ضمن 27 تعديل للدستور، كلها أجازت التصويت للبالغين بغض النظر عن دينهم وعرقهم أو جنسهم أو خلفيتهم الاجتماعية. So the second point is about the Muslims' right in this country. Anyone who comes to this country will enjoy freedom of speech, freedom of religion, freedom of assembly, which has been protected by the First Amendment of the Constitution. There are 27 amendments to the United States Constitution. 4 of them are related to the votings. The 15th, 19th, 24th, and 26th Amendment. All of them give the right for people to vote on different levels, regardless of their sex, gender, or color, or for free, without paying any tolls to vote. So many Muslims are deprived of that right in the Muslim countries. They cannot vote, they cannot run for elections. Anyone who was not born naturally in this country cannot run for president or presidency, but anyone who was naturalized in this country can run after 7 years to the Congress, and after 15 years to the House of Representatives, and after 15 years to the Senate, after being a citizen. But the point here, it's a duty, as some scholars have explained. I'm going to mention that inshallah shortly. And it's a privilege. We should use it, we should not abuse it, we should not ignore it. Because if we don't participate, we should not blame anyone beside ourselves. The third inshallah point, the last point, which is the most important here in this regard to the Muslim scholars' view about Muslims' participation in the political process, namely and specifically in regard to elections, is very important. At the beginning I have to state that some Muslim scholars who are the minority have said it's haram, it is not permissible to participate. I have to say that. But many Muslim scholars, the vast majority of them, said it is permissible if not mandatory. And they cite the following things. First, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala made it mandatory on Muslims to use shura, but He did not elaborate, did not explain it in details. And also, specifically, we are speaking about Muslim minorities living in a non-Muslim country. So the elections in the Muslim country, that's another subject, but which many also say it's halal. But the point here, we are speaking about minorities, Muslim minorities in non-Muslim countries. So there are 2 verses in the Quran. One of them orders Prophet ﷺ to consult with his companions about Shura. The second one, Allah described the believers as using Shura. In Surah 3, verse 159, Surah Al-Imran, وَشَاوِرْهُمْ فِي الْأَمْرِ, and consult with them in the matter. And in Surah 42, which bears the title of Shura, وَأَمْرُهُمْ شُورَى بَيْنَهُمْ, and who conduct their affairs by mutual consultations. So, many of them, as I'm going to mention 3 or 4 titles of fatwa and cite some, from the 4th fatwa, they said it's permissible. أيها الإخوة المؤمنون أيها الأخوات، فيما يتعلق بالنقطة الثالثة وهي مشروعية مشاركة المسلمين في الانتخابات في الغرب، هناك قولان. القول الأول وهو ضعيف، قول قلة من المسلمين وأنها حرام. ينبغي أن أقول ذلك لأنه ليس ثمة إجماع، لكن جمهور العلماء على أنها جائزة إن لم تكن واجبة نظرا للظروف والحيثيات. ونحن هنا لا نتحدث عن انتخابات في بلد مسلم، وإنما نتحدث عن أقلية مسلمة تعيش في بلد غير مسلم. فهم يقولون الله سبحانه وتعالى أوجب الشورى، لكنه جل وعلا ورسوله صلى الله عليه وسلم لم يحدد تفاصيل الشورى. وإنما عندنا آيتان من القرآن في سورة آل عمران أمر بالشورى، فاعف عنهم واستغفر لهم وشاورهم في الأمر. وفي سورة الشورى السورة 42 من القرآن وتحمل الشورى بسبب هذه الآية وأمرهم شورى بينهم، لكن النبي صلى الله عليه وسلم لم يبين تفاصيل ذلك. وهي الانتخابات وسيلة كما قالوا، والوسائل تعرض على الشرع بما وافق منها قبل، ولا تعارض هنا إن شاء الله. ويذكر النبي صلى الله عليه وسلم اتخذ الخاتم ولم يكن موجودا عند العرب، وعندما كان قضية الرومانية ختم الرسمي لم يكن موجودا عند العرب. وكذلك استخدم المنبر ولم يكن موجودا عند العرب، وإنما كان عند الحبشة. وكذلك حفر الخندق بعد غزوة الخندق ولم يكن معروفا عند العرب، وإنما كان عند الفرس كما قال سلمان رضي الله عنه كنا إذا حوربنا خندقنا. So briefly inshallah ta'ala, Muslim scholars said elections are only tools, and tools should be exposed to the Islamic views, and if they are not against it, we should accept it. And they cited that Prophet ﷺ used the seal, the official seal, and it was not known in his time, it was only used by the Romans. And he used the pulpit, which has been used only by the Abyssinian. And he dug the trench in the 5th year of Hijrah, after Medina was under the siege of 10,000, of Quraysh, Khutbah, Hawazin, and the Jewish tribes of Medina. And Salman Farisi told him, whenever we fight, we dig a trench, so the horses cannot jump over it. So these are tools and can be used. And there are many verses here, I'm not going to cite for the sake of time, but I would mention that there are many scholars who have issued fatwas to say that it's legitimate, it's permissible for Muslims, if not mandatory, to participate. I will mention just 2 of them and cite something from the 3rd and finish the first khutbah inshallah. The fatwa of Sheikh Al-Azhar rahimahullah, the late Jad al-Haq, Ali Jad al-Haq rahimahullah, said it's permissible. The fatwa issued in Detroit, Michigan in November 1999 by the Muslim jurist of North America. And the last one inshallah, the fatwa of the European Council for Research and Fatwa, which they say, we call this participation a duty because we do not consider it merely a right that can be abandoned or a permission which can be ignored. They added, looking at the situation of the Muslim communities, the Muslim community and their need to have their interest met, it becomes advisable for the Muslims to achieve its purpose, to achieve this purpose through the available political system. There is nothing wrong with Muslims casting their votes in favor of the less evil candidate. And lastly, they said Muslims are recommended or even obliged to vote for the party who will be of the most benefit on a national and international level. As I said earlier, masjids are 501c3 tax exempt. They cannot, they may not, they should not endorse or oppose any candidate. They cannot endorse, support or fight any issue. So other tax, political action committees, individuals can do that. And nobody should tell anyone how to vote, but we should tell each other to vote, to register to vote, and to come out and to look at the programs of the candidates and the parties. Look at many aspects, many criteria. The criteria includes healthcare, good education, safety, security, prosperity, environments, global warming, and we should make a sound decision based on this and based on the history of the candidates. عباد الله نسأل الله سبحانه وتعالى المغفرة وتوبوا إليه إنه هو الغفور الرحيم. Please ask Allah forgiveness so He may forgive us. الحمد لله ولي الصالحين والصلاة والسلام على المبعوث رحمة العالمين وعلى آله وصحبه أجمعين. عباد الله، بعض الناس لا يحب المشاركة بالسياسة وهذا حقهم، لكن لذلك سلبيات. وقد قال بعض علمائنا: خذ السياسة على جانب والولها الحبل على الغالب، لا تكن مغلوبا ولا غالبا، كن ذالذ المغلوب والغالب. لكن هذا رأي ضعيف لا ينبغي الاعتماد عليه. فالمسلم لا بد أن يقول الحق وأن يقف مع الحق وأن يدعم الحق، وإن كان الجميع فيه باطل فينظر إلى أخف الضررين وأقل الأمرين خسارة. Dear respected brothers and sisters and elders, some people abstain from engaging in the political process or in public life, and they just stay on the margin. They don't care if A beats B or B beats C. They don't care. But if we don't get engaged in the society, we cannot blame anyone except ourselves. If I have the right to choose between two good candidates, I must do it, take the best. If I have the right to make a choice between two bad people, I should take the least of two evils. And that should be the aim here in this process. There are many good candidates in different levels. Probably will not find someone who satisfies me or you or everyone 100%. There is no such candidate. But we should look at the candidates. We should not abstain from registering. If we are citizens, if we are not citizens, we should not register to vote. That's called a fraud, and it will be prosecuted. It's haram, fiqh-wise. It's illegal from the legal point of view, and it will not be tolerated. But if someone is citizen, enjoys his right, must and should register to vote and then make his decision based on that. Lastly, inshallah, what are some of the benefits of participating in the public life, in elections? So if Muslims don't come out, nobody will know them. Some surveys show that 50% of Americans, they said they never met any Muslims. Now you see, if anyone pretends to be a Muslim, like that university professor, to wear some clothes, he will be kicked out of any public event or for any candidates, because they are afraid of Muslims. Even though he may be checked up, go through the metal detectors and everything, he doesn't expose any threat to anyone, but just because he looks different, he will not be accepted. If a sister has hijab, she will not be accepted in some places. So nobody knows who Muslims are. Even we have many, mashallah, good doctors, good ITs, good businessmen, good students. But Muslims also in this country need to work on having more lawyers, more writers, more journalists, reporters, so people can know them and they know what they think about what they see on TV and some special TV which are not Muslim friendly, to the best word to say here, for the lack of the best word. So they will not have good ideas about Muslims. So if Ahmed, Muhammad, Saeed and Zayd do not come out to tell the neighbors, who are they, to start from the neighborhood, to be in the civic associations, to start for supporting, probably running for Board of Educations, the county, the city, probably to be active in the state level, for the federal level. Nobody will know who's Muslims, what they think, what they stand for. Nobody. Other people will tell our narration, our narrative, so nobody will know us and will not control that. So I say, Islam is not, Islam is not, Islam is not, we are against this. But who are Muslims? What Muslims can say, what Muslims can do? We should be proactive, not reacting to what others said. And also, as I mentioned, to protect the freedom, the liberties of everyone, including Muslims. And as we know, many minorities, all minorities have suffered too much in this country before getting their rights. There is no free lunch. They had to work hard and diligently. Irish, Italian, Jews, Chinese, and Japanese after the Second World War, all of them, they had to face some kinds of discriminations, some kind of labeling they are the enemy of the state or the enemy of the society. Every society may have some people, every ethnicity may have some bad people, but the vast majority of people are good. And those good should not compromise their situation by just keeping silence because some people are bad. The bad people should be held accountable, but the good people should not be held guilty by association. If we don't come out, nobody will know who we are. I should not, nobody should tell you or to tell people how to vote, but we should tell people to register to vote and to go to vote. How to vote and why to whom to vote, that's a personal decision everyone must make, and it is his or her own decision. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will ask him about it. Did he give it to the right person or just follow his desires? Let me just give you this. If we have two candidates, one of them is Muslim, but he's not qualified, and the other is non-Muslim, is qualified. We must choose the non-Muslim candidate because he's qualified and he would serve people, and we should not go for Muslim just because of his name or because he's from us or he looks like us. We have to be just. We have to uphold the law and justice and defend justice for everyone, not only for Muslims, and we should be engaged in a positive and constructive way in the society. And with that, I will conclude with dua. So please say Amin. اللهم لك الحمد حتى ترضى ولك الحمد إذا رضيت ولك الحمد بعد الرضا ولك الحمد على كل حال. اللهم صل على محمد وعلى آل محمد كما صليت على إبراهيم وعلى آل إبراهيم إنك حميد مجيد. وبارك على محمد وعلى آل محمد كما باركت على إبراهيم وعلى آل إبراهيم في العالمين إنك حميد مجيد. اللهم اغفر لنا في هذه الساعة أجمعين. ربنا آتنا في الدنيا حسنة وفي الآخرة حسنة وقنا عذاب النار. ربنا ظلمنا أنفسنا وإن لم تغفر لنا وترحمنا لنكونن من الخاسرين. رب اغفر وارحم واعف وتكرم وتجاوز عما تعلم. اللهم اغفر ذنوبنا واستر عيوبنا بلغنا مما يرضيك آمالنا. متعنا بأسماعنا وأبصارنا وقواتنا أبدا ما أحييتنا واجعله الوارث منا. اللهم اجعل ثارنا على من ظلمنا ولا تجعل مصيبتنا في ديننا ولا تجعل مصيبتنا في ديننا ولا تجعل الدنيا أكبر همنا ولا مبلغ علمنا ولا إلى النار مصيرنا. اللهم اغفر لآبائنا وأمهاتنا اكرمهم أحياء وأمواتا. رب ارحمهم كما ربونا صغارا. اغفر لنا ولأزواجنا وإخواننا ومشايخنا وأحبابنا. اللهم أصلح نياتنا وذرياتنا. من رزقته منا ذرية فاجعلها ذرية طيبة، ومن لم ترزقه ذرية فارزقه ذرية طيبة. اللهم ارفع الظلم عن المظلومين. اللهم ارفع الظلم عن المظلومين وأهلك الظالمين والجبارين والمعتدين. اللهم احصهم عددا واقتلهم بددا ولا تكلهم أحدا. اللهم سفكوا الدماء. اللهم قتلوا الرجال والنساء والأطفال. اللهم فرج عن المسجونين في سجون الطغاة. اللهم فرج عن اللاجئين والمهجرين والمحاصرين وأعدهم إلى أوطانهم سالمين غانمين منتصرين. ربنا أظلمنا أنفسنا وإن لم تغفر لنا وترحمنا لنكون من الخاسرين. اللهم اشف مرضانا ومرضى المسلمين وأصلح أحوالنا وأحوال المسلمين. اللهم اختم بالصالحات أعمالنا وبالسعادة آجالنا وتوفنا وأنت راض عنا. اللهم لك الحمد كثيرا كما تعطي كثيرا ولك الحمد كثيرا كما تعطي كثيرا. اللهم صل على محمد وعلى آل محمد كما صليت على إبراهيم وعلى آل إبراهيم إنك حميد مجيد. وبارك على محمد وعلى آل محمد كما باركت على إبراهيم وعلى آل إبراهيم إنك حميد مجيد. وآخر دعوانا الحمد لله رب العالمين وأقيم الصلاة.
الله أكبر الله أكبر.